Hi, this is Dr. Tim Green, and I am here with Dr. Leslie Jensen-Inman, and I'm so happy to be able to talk with her. Just a little bit about Dr. Jensen-Inman before I let her introduce herself. She's a former assistant professor at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. She's a co-founder of the Center and also of the Unicorn Institute, which she's going to talk about today. And she's co-authored a number of articles and books on web design and design in general. And I suggest go out there and check out her blogs and the stuff that she's written because it's very, very interesting. So welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Thanks for such a warm introduction.
I just want to talk to you about the Center, and so my first question is a pretty simple one. What is a Center?
That's a great first question. So Center is a new user experience design school that really focuses on teaching adults a holistic set of skills to become a user experience designer, other known as a UX designer.
And so is it it's online, or is it live? Is it a mix?
It's actually in person. It's a bricks and mortar school. It's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're just about to have our first cohort of students. We'll be having that start later in the fall, and we really realized, my business partner and I, the co-founder of the school, Jared Spool, and I, we went and we did research to figure out what hiring managers and hiring companies really need from user experience designers. And one of the things that we learned was that they're not so interested in hiring students or recent graduates from just online schools. It turns out that one of the biggest challenges they're having are hiring people with the right mix of soft skills and technical skills. So technical skills can be pretty easy to learn online in a lot of ways. However, the soft skills are a lot more challenging to learn online. And since most of these companies that we've been talking with have in-person teams, they really wanted students who had had a lot of experience working and collaborating together in a physical space.
So you mentioned the soft skills, and I imagine collaboration, which you just mentioned, is one of them. What are the other soft skills that employers are hoping that they find?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we heard over and over again hiring managers say to us, we would just like to be able to hire a graduate who can sit through a meeting and not look like they're going to die.
I need that skill myself, actually.
Well, it's one that we all, it's a learned skill, and that kind of professional stamina is not something you tend to get in a traditional academic environment. Our structure for the school is really different than traditional academia. Our courses are 3 weeks long, and they meet Monday through Friday during a more traditional regular work hours, so kind of a 9 to 5 thing, because the hiring managers say we need people that can last the whole day without checking this social media thing or taking a break or taking a nap. All these things that a lot of times in a traditional academic environment really force students to do because their classes are so sprinkled all over the week, and they're just trying to survive kind of the chaos that can be a regular semester. So our classes and courses are all set up to be really different and to in a lot of ways resemble the workplace environment, a professional setting.
So then I imagine then it's built around project-based, and is it competency-based? I mean, can you describe like what a tip? So if I was your student, what would I get in that 3-week course, the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5?
Sure. The 3-week courses are broken up into 3 main parts. The first 2 days of any course are a industry-grade workshop by an industry professional. So we're bringing in guest industry experts to come in and teach the most up-to-date information about maybe responsive web design, or what do we need to know about mobile at this time, mobile devices and designing applications for mobile devices, or websites for regular displays and also for smaller screens. And instead of having our full-time faculty give lectures about that, we're bringing in industry experts so that our faculty and our students are all learning and being kept up to date, so that professional development's consistently happening for not only our students but also for our full-time faculty, who we call facilitators, because they're not lecturers. They're facilitating these experiences, and because our program is 75% project-based, they really do have to have a kind of a different role than maybe a traditional professor. So they're helping to lead projects, they're helping to mentor and coach the students in a really different way. They're definitely not stage on stage kind of experience. It's much more, here's the 2 days of workshop that we've all learned together, and how does that translate to the next stage of the course, which is 3 days of individual mastery projects. And this is when the students have very individualized learning. So our students, we expect them to come into the school with a whole bunch of different kind of backgrounds. So they might be more experienced in visual design or more experienced in front-end development. But what we want to make sure is that the students we meet them where they are and then take them to their own individual next level. And even though most of our time is spent on team-based projects, what we know is if you just create a team, a lot of times each student goes to what they already know, because the other teammates are like, hey, you're really great at designing this stuff to make it look great, so why don't you do that? I'll focus on the code part, and we'll get through this and get really great grades. Problem with that is you don't learn the other things that you need to know to be a really holistic generalist designer. And so we're going to have 3 days of individualized projects, these individualized mastery projects that really help the students take what they've learned in those 2-day industry grade workshops, put it into practice for themselves, and then the last part of the course is 2 weeks of team projects.
Okay.
These are real projects with real clients, some from professional partner companies. Some of them are for nonprofits in the Chattanooga area, so we're working with organizations, and some are for the school ourselves. And what's really neat is that we are, for the partner companies who have projects that students are working on, they will provide the resources for the students to build out the projects so that the students really go from concept to completion, because we all know that you can make something look nice, but to actually put it into practice is a whole different story.
Right.
And so the partner companies will provide the resources to build it out, and the students will work with professional, really great developers and programmers to make those projects happen. And then with the nonprofits, because they don't usually have the kind of resources that a corporation would, we're working with local foundations in Chattanooga to raise funds to help support the build-out of those projects. So, for example, if we worked with a women's shelter, that we'd be able to provide them maybe a software for tracking the soft goods that they're getting in throughout the year, so that they can make sure that women and children have the clothes that they need during colder months. But we wouldn't just say, hey, this is a really cool idea. Don't you love it? We'll say, yeah, this is a really cool idea, and here we've built it out for you. So we're actually making a difference in the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is very cool. So I have a question based upon how these courses. So that I think you just outlined the 3-week-long courses, or a 3-week-long course. The 2 days of industry experts, 3 days of individual mastery projects, and 2 weeks of team projects. I know this is a very pedantic question, but how is that graded? Or or evaluated, however you want to put it.
So we are really focusing on learning and not so much grading.
Sure.
Although we will have assessment. So, because it's important to understand where each student is and where they're getting to, and making sure there is progress. But grading doesn't matter as much, and we think from the research we've done, our experience in the past, that having traditional kind of A through F grades would actually hold back the team learning, and it might become a little bit more about, hey, my grade's at risk here and I want to do the best, so I might throw my classmate under the bus, which is a really tough thing to want to have happen when you're talking about most of the projects being team-based. So we're doing a pass-fail system based on competencies, based on authentic assessments. There's a lot of written and oral reflection that happens within the curriculum. And so it's more about learning and really less about grades.
So I just have a follow-up question to that, which is I like that philosophy. I wish we could do that in higher ed more, especially the graduate programs. I think everyone would be a lot happier. But you mentioned the competencies. How did you arrive at, and your team arrive at, what competencies that your students needed or your graduates needed?
So that also comes from a lot of research. So before Jared and I decided we were definitely going to do school and what it was going to look like, we went and we talked with educators, we've talked with recent graduates, we talked with current students, and we talked with hiring managers. And we started to understand in depth what skills were needed to be successful in a career in user experience design. Because we are creating industry-ready designers, and that's a really important thing. So if we don't know what the hiring managers need,
Right.
then we can't get the students to where they need to be. And we're creating junior-level designers. So we're not creating the people that are going to be, the project managers right away, or a creative director. We are creating junior people that have a really strong, broad base, a really great foundation, so that they can be useful from day one within the organization that hires them. And so we've really been looking at the technical, hard skills that students need to survive and thrive within a professional setting, and also the soft interpersonal skills they need. So there's a lot of focus on facilitation, facilitating meetings. What do you do when you're working with somebody that's never really gone through the design process before? How do you talk to someone that's really much more interested in the bottom line than how the design looks? And that's an important, you just need to know how to talk with different people in the way that they can hear and hold value to what you're doing. And so our students are going to be learning those kind of skills, presentation skills. They'll also learn design skills as well. But these are all things that are assessed, and we've got rubrics for different kinds of assignments to make sure that the students know what's expected of them,
Sure.
and then know how to have like a really successful time within the program.
Great, that's awesome. So I have another related question to that. You mentioned the hard skill, technical skills. What and I know off the top of your head, what do you rank as some of the top technical skills that those who go into UX need?
Sure. It's a really wide variety. So technical skills like how to choose typefaces correctly that are readable and legible. What about color contrast? How do you design for somebody that is colorblind? You know, when you look on a website, and so it's a real challenge. You know, if you're colorblind and you go, and the only thing on a website that tells you a link is a color differentiation, but no contrast and no value, it's really hard to navigate the website.
It is.
How do you make it so that somebody who's using a screen reader has access to the content in a way that isn't frustrating, in a way that they can really navigate the site or the application? And these are all things that user experience designers need to understand, because user experience design is the design decisions that are made to make experience using a website or an application, or you know when you go to the airport and you check in on a kiosk and there's a screen, and sometimes that experience is great and sometimes you want to rip your hair out, and so do the 20 people that have lined up behind you, and you're like, I'm so sorry, I thought I was doing all of this right, and you might be, but the experience hasn't been designed.
Does coding play? I mean, do you need to be able to code at all? I mean, is that helpful? Is it not? And to what level?
You know, I really believe that designers need to understand how to code. Now, I don't believe that every designer needs to do production level coding, so the kind of coding that makes everything run so smoothly that if you're a big company like Amazon or eBay, that you're being super efficient and super tight with your code. I don't think every designer needs that.
Okay.
But every designer needs to know how to work with somebody that is at that level and have a really great understanding of the vocabulary to understand how the full stack of a website is made, to have respect for teammates who have different skills, and so that it's not like I'm a designer and you're a developer. It's more like we're a team and we're creating this product together. We're creating an experience together. But at the very least, I really will go out there and say that user experience designers need to understand how to do the basics of front-end development, which in general means a mix of the basics of HTML, CSS, and probably right now a bit of JavaScript and or jQuery. But if you can't do it all, it's okay. It's just a matter of you need to be able to have that vocabulary, to work with another teammate that can, and to be able to learn it when you need to. So it's not about knowing everything, it's about the ability to learn anything.
Cool. Yeah, which goes to a quote. I mean, that I think this ties in. One of the quotes I read on one of your blog posts, which I really like, and I'm mentioning it just because I like it. You wrote, "My goal was to help students learn how to learn instead of telling them exactly what to learn." And I really like that. And I think that's kind of what you're saying there is you may not need to, I'm not going to tell you what you need to know, but I'm going to help you learn what you need to when you need to know it. So that kind of ties in. I really dug that quote. So I just took a diversion there. Sorry.
No, it's great to know that something resonates with somebody.
No, that was good. And you had another quote on one of your blog posts that you did, and pastry in a box.
Yeah, the pastry box project.
Yeah, and I liked one of them. You talked about you feeling like you're a connector of ideas and people, and I can identify with. That's kind of what I feel as well. I'm a connector as well, so I like that as well. So I mentioned it early on when I introduced you about the Unicorn Institute. Do you mind talking about what that is and how that fits with the center and or not?
Oh, it totally fits. So here's the thing. The Unicorn Institute has been our research project to figure out what we were going to do with Center.
Okay.
And before we could even talk about Center as a school, we are authorized by the state of Tennessee, and it's a long process, as anybody that's tried to start a school or maybe has gone through an authorization process can understand. The state of Tennessee has actually approved like 13 inches of binders worth of papers and information from us.
Wow.
Process took about a year, and during that time we weren't really allowed to talk about Center as a school publicly, because actually the state of Tennessee will fine you about $1,000 a day if you do.
Oh.
And so, but we thought, hey, we want to share this research that we've been gathering, because we think it's not only helpful to us, but it's helpful to our industry and other people who are trying to start new educational initiatives. And so we wanted to share that information, and we needed to do it in a way where we weren't going to basically spend all of our budget paying off fines by talking about it. And so we came up with the Unicorn Institute, and that is our research project. It's basically we're trying to figure out what pathways are right for to create user experience designers. And the reason so unicorn is this kind of mythical, magical creature. And this idea of a user experience designer who's a real generalist, really understands all the parts that are in play with user experience design, is a kind of a unicorn too. It's a little bit more mythical and magical than the specialists that are currently out there. And one of the reasons is because there just hasn't been educational environments where you can get a really holistic understanding of all the pieces of UX. And so when we were meeting with the hiring managers, we realized that people were really loving the idea of unicorns. They either love it or hate it, but most people love it, and I think some people just love to hate it. But they're really they started drawing us pictures we were having these, professional meetings, are real serious about skills and minding the skills gap, all this stuff, and then at the end they would hand us pictures of unicorns. And I realized, and Jared realized, this was really, really resonating with folks, and we might as well go with it. But Unicorn Institute as a name would be really difficult, I think, to get kind of a blue chip company, a super senior VP person to understand and feel like they were hiring someone from a real institution. So I think our mascot will be a unicorn, but the school is called Center.
That's cool. I like that. I like the idea of the understanding of all the parts that make up the whole, but that person really kind of not existing. That's I like that and relating that to the unicorn. That's cool. Thanks for explaining that.
My pleasure.
Do you your concept of education to employment and your whole center, the whole concept, do you what do you think about this in other fields? Do you think it could be something that would transfer over? And I don't even have one in mind, to be honest with you. I just the whole concept that you have. Do you think it would work with other fields?
Definitely, I think so. I know Jared thinks so. And what's really neat is the Tennessee Higher Education Commission thinks so too, because this was a real stretch for them, and a lot of the things that we were proposing, it's not traditional in a lot of ways, and they've just been so great to work with us, kind of come alongside with us figure out what they really were looking for and how we could develop a program that got the students the learning they needed, but also made sure it fit within the state standards. And they have said to us that they see this as the future of education. And I think it's telling for Tennessee in general that our state's thinking about it on this level and willing to kind of take education in a new way. But I do see this can be used in a lot of different ways. And in some ways, I think it's already happening in different fields, like nursing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see a lot of learning by doing, a lot of experiential learning.
Sure.
It's a little bit different in the kind of ways we've structured things, but I like seeing that other fields are doing some of this, and I love the idea of other people being able to take this model and just going forward and making awesomeness in their own way.
Yeah, that is cool. And how cool to be able to kind of pioneer that in Tennessee. That's cool. A couple other questions. I don't know if they're even related. So how long is the program? I don't know if we even mentioned that.
Oh, right. It's a 2-year program, so it's 24 months. It goes all year round, but there are breaks, but they're not super long breaks because we don't want learning to be lost over time. And also, a traditional professional environment doesn't have 3 months off at a time.
Sure.
So we're trying to really replicate a professional work environment.
So let's say I took this 2 years, what would I end up with? What would I be called besides a unicorn?
Oh, besides a unicorn, which might be the biggest compliment of all. You would be a junior user experience designer, and there's it's actually a diploma granting. We're a diploma granting institution, and it's a diploma in user experience design and technology. But to me, that's not even the coolest part. I think the most interesting part of this is that you end up with real stories. So you don't just end up with a perfect, polished portfolio. Yes, you'll have that. But you can get that at other schools too, and you can make anything kind of look great if you've got those kind of skills. But our students are going to be able to graduate with a portfolio filled with stories, a portfolio where they can say, hey, this is a project I worked on with this many team members. Here's where we really struggled. Here's the part that I worked on most. Here's what I would have done differently now that I've gone through this experience. This is the part where we really felt like we were in our groove and we really came together. Or, yeah, I was working with this one client and it didn't quite work out, and this is why, but this is what we were still able to accomplish. We probably would be able to accomplish more now that I know how to handle this situation in the future. These are all things that when hiring managers meet with somebody and are going through the interview process are way more important than pretty pictures of a website or an application, because really you can make anything kind of look good, but can you develop it out? Can you work with other people and the challenges that brings?
Cool. Yeah, I like that. I like it. I like the portfolio of stories. That's a nice concept, and it seems like it's very highly reflective, which is great.
Yes, we have critical reflection interwoven throughout the entire curriculum. It's really, for me, it's one of the most powerful things when you can really look back on what you've learned and understand how that's going to change your approach to things in the future. That's one of the most powerful things, especially when we're teaching how to be lifelong learners, because you kind of, to do that well, you have to know how to ask yourself those hard questions and kind of take those self-assessments. And so we'll really be helping students understand how to do that, not just while they're in school, but way beyond that.
So you mentioned that your Unicorn Institute was like the research part of this prior to being able to actually start the Center. So what do you have future research in the works planned? About what you do at the Center? Do you hope? What do you, as you move forward, are there things that you're going to explore from a research point of view? I'm just curious because I like that sort of thing.
I like that sort of thing too. Yeah, I love when we can have research that's connected to real context and these real projects. So in a way, the school is one big massive project.
Sure.
And so it can be a huge research project, or we can take little bits and pieces out of it. I know that we are, as a team, I have two, Jared and I, we are the co-founders, but we have two full-time teammates that aren't faculty yet, and we're the first full-time faculty members actually coming on early June, and then we're in the midst of hiring two more because our cohort of students is 36 students together, and two facilitators are full-time faculty, or three facilitators are full-time faculty that move together. So it's 36 students and three facilitators. They actually move through the whole 2 years together.
Oh, nice.
So I know that those facilitators will bring their own research interest to the mix, and I can see us sharing a lot of what we're doing, including how do you set up for a non-traditional environment for a learning institution, and what kind of furniture you use, and what do you put on the walls, and how does that change from what you expect on day one to the reality like day 150. Those are going to be different things, and we're really keeping that in mind as we're building out the space and purchasing furniture. How do you create team projects that are with real clients and solve those challenges in a way that makes sense? What kind of contracts do you have to put in place? All the kind of like little nitty-gritty things. So I can see us sharing all of that kind of information as we move forward. And then, of course, we'll continue to do research on what hiring companies need, what they want, because without that information, we can't deliver the best education for our students, because our students are going to come wanting to graduate and earn a job. And because we're bringing in partner companies and mentors from day one, that is a really strong chance for the students. But as long as we continue to make sure that our curriculum is up to date.
Cool. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know too, from like your student perspective too, how they go through that process and how they feel about it and their perceptions, because it's definitely it's not something I experienced in my life for my education, but it'll be something that's unique. So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely. I believe that'll probably be some of our research as well.
Oh, I don't doubt that. Okay, so I like to end all the interviews with asking advice of the people I'm interviewing. So I kind of have two related questions, but I'll just throw them out. You can answer them however you want. So one of them, what advice do you have for those who are interested in a career in UX? That's one. And the other one is, what advice do you have for those who train, teach, facilitate others in UX? Do you have any advice that you can share?
Sure. So for people that are looking to get into user experience, if it's a new term that you're hearing for the first or maybe only second, third time, definitely do some research on it. Find out, who are the experts in it. Follow people on Twitter. Check out different user experience. There's lots of LinkedIn groups. There's lots of UX book clubs. And user experience is one of those amazing fields where you can be interested in pretty much anything and it's going to fit. Because you've got to look at it from so many different points of view, which is really neat. So user experience is never dull and never boring. So if anybody is like the person that goes, hey, I like to change my focus every once in a while, because once I feel like I know something really well, I actually want to move on. User experience is a great career because you can do that throughout your entire career, and it doesn't look like you just don't make up your mind. It looks like you're continuing to learn. Mm-hmm. So
I like that.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting in that way. So, and then if you're interested in UX, definitely make sure that you're a lifelong learner and you're really gritty and tenacious, um, because that's one of the largest skills needed for to be a UX person. But the UX community is really open and welcoming. There's lots of conferences. People online will help those that have questions. So find someone on Twitter, find someone's email address. You know, someone will reach out and get back to you and answer your questions.
That's
Um,
excellent.
yeah, it's a really neat community. And then the other question you had was for educators of UXers, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not talking to people at like your level, but if any, if those who may teach something related to UX, maybe a course here and there, any advice that you have for them, and I actually think the advice that you just gave would be very helpful for them too. But
Pretty
any
much.
other piece of wisdom or advice that you could give?
That working on projects, collaborative projects, is really key for what hiring managers are looking for. The soft skills are just as, if not more important than the technical skills. That it's hard to, of course, to assess those kind of things. It's hard in a traditional academic environment to work with real clients. And it's not hard because educators don't have the right intelligence. It's because the systems aren't really there to support educators, right? And so whenever you can, have your students involved with the community, have them reaching out to professionals, working together as students, have it not be cheating, have it be collaboration. And then when you feel overwhelmed, find somebody else that's doing the same or similar things as you and talk about it, because sometimes it can be feeling really lonely, like you're on your own island.
Mm-hmm.
But user experience design topics, they really transcend the silos in a university setting, because you get to go talk with your librarians and the business folks and the computer science people and the communications department, because you have an excuse, because design and user experience is in everything.
Right.
And so this gives it a way of having a reason to go out and approach other people within the school that you're working with.
Awesome. Thank you. That is great. A lot of good advice. Again, I want to thank you for your time. I appreciate you spending this time with me, and I know others are going to find what you've said to be very helpful. So, again, thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's really an honor and a pleasure.
Thanks.